Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Stefan.
Please tell us, what is your change in strategic planning 2017 compared to this year?
Well, one of the key things for 2017 is we really want to change the focus of all of the company from looking at just rooms revenue to this concept of looking at the total revenue per available room, as well as an appreciation of the understanding the distribution costs. So we're really changing the key KPI of the organization from RevPAR into net total RevPAR. And the other key aspect that we're looking at is, of course, building out the customer lifetime value. So we're not just looking at the revenue for one single stay, but truly understanding how to engage with individual guests throughout their whole customer journey so that we can look at having them come back again and again and build out the customer lifetime value. So those are two really key focus for us.
I think there's a lot more emphasis on performance marketing overall, and that brings into light looking at measurements and the way we look at our business in a different way. I think that's the biggest change that has taken in the last 2 years, I would say, where a lot more is being invested in return on investment, holding ourselves accountable on doing a lot of test and learn activity to really keep honing and making those incremental gains with the challenging business conditions.
The great thing about 2017 when we're looking ahead is that we have some normality in this year from month to month for our hotel business. And here in Thailand, here in Bangkok, as we all know very well, we've had year after year that there's been some sort of disruption. We did have a couple of challenges in 2016, of course, but compared with previous years, Stefan, it was a normal year. So when you have that base, it makes it much easier to think strategically about 2017.
Well, for our business, IHG, actually our major priorities are the same next year as they have been for the last couple of years. Right, from a global level in Southeast Asia, this part of the world, we have kind of a pretty clear roadmap around preferred brands, loyalty, lifetime loyalty and relationships, and really a big agenda around Book Direct. Right, those are our three major sales and marketing priorities, and we're staying the course on that because that really is a multi-year journey for us.
I think the big shift for us is that we have a big shift in technology, and a big shift of bringing all the brands together that we have. So at the moment, we move from being 2 brands to becoming 5, 6, 7 brands. So that means that all our technology, all our tools, all our market segmentations, everything we do now needs to be consolidated in it. So 2017 will be the year of the consolidation.
How do you increase the collaboration between revenue management people and distribution people in your organization?
For revenue management, as we move from just managing rooms revenue top line, as we move into profitability, as we look at actually building out the whole ancillary stream through the customer journey, and work with marketing, a big part of which is digital marketing, into looking at the customer lifetime value, I think it's really time for the industry as a whole, and particularly for our company, to be elevating the role of revenue management into more of a strategic role. So we've been doing a lot in terms of identifying new capabilities that we expect of our Director of Revenue Management, and also new competencies, areas of influence, so that they can move from managing top line to really becoming a strategic advisor to the whole commercial organization. So that's kind of a movement for revenue management. And in that role, it becomes really important for them to be working 360 degrees with sales, with digital marketing, to drive the revenue stream. In particular, we know that a lot of the commercial areas is moving from perhaps traditional sales into really the world of digital marketing, which helps us to reach the guests directly from right across the world. So the revenue management and the digital marketing team really have to work hand in hand to identify where the business is coming from, identifying the demand that is required from the hotels, and make sure that we put together a great campaign that actually engages your target customer segments.
One of the things I've tried to do is create this culture. I'll give you a practical example. If we have a revenue, we call it revenue performance rather than revenue management. So if we have a revenue performance meeting, we try to involve as many parties as possible, including F&B, including SPA, to try to have as many voices as we can around the table. And this has been part of the culture that I've tried to create. Yes, there's plenty of overlap, and some parties have a much greater understanding of one over the other. So it's an ongoing, it's a learning experience.
Yeah, there's clear differences between what we need our revenue leaders to do, as well as obviously marketing and digital. It really starts with a couple of areas, right? Again, I go back to the general manager, right? Making sure that when he's leading discussions, he or she's leading discussions on property, whether it's a revenue meeting, whether it's in daily briefings, but bringing those leaders together to make them kind of work together and see the business more holistically. And then I think it's also around what we expect of a director of sales and marketing, who may or may not have revenue under their function, but it's about educating them and ensuring they understand that digital marketing in particular has to include a large component piece of revenue principles relative to how we manage the digital business. So, it's not about organizational structure, it really is about kind of ways of working, a culture that is set from the leadership of the ExCom at a hotel level, about kind of bringing those two areas together.
So I think that's kind of been like the biggest innovation we probably have done in Minor. And the innovation has been done through merging our roles of distribution between Brian, who is the head of revenue management. So now he has, in his title, he has as well distribution, as well as me, I have distribution in my title. We have merged our teams, and there's no more this kind of feeling of like, oh, it's your fault, or it's your fault, or who didn't do the job. It's rather, we are one single team together with two heads that, when one is not there, the other one can do. So that has given a whole new direction to our teams beneath as well, where they feel, it's about collaboration between our teams rather than about what is more important or what role is like the most relevant.
5 years ago, we had just taken the first initial step towards revenue management. I think in 5 years ago, if I look back now, it's a remarkable achievement. I think that's the most significant thing to achieve in revenue management is get people acculturized to a more revenue, top line and profitability oriented approach to business and be able to look business in a more meaningful manner in a forward horizon and be able to make your strategies and tactics more proactive.
Does your company have any specific initiatives to enhance the collaboration between these two parties? Because traditionally there have been different mindsets for digital marketing and revenue management. So you mentioned that it's very important for them to work together, but are there specific initiatives so that this collaboration can be enforced or fostered?
Yeah, I think probably the easiest way that we do work together hand in hand between revenue management and digital marketing is in the area of coming up with marketing campaigns. So with marketing campaigns, we ensure that the revenue management team and the analytics team as well is helping to identify the need periods, helping to identify who their target customer segments are and when they book, how much in advance, and the type of price sensitivity that they have. Then of course that is a bit of the science behind it. And then for the digital marketing team is really to understand it from the point of view of the consumers. So what's the content, what's the storyline that's going to excite the consumers to actually buy that price point? How do you kind of package it together beautifully? So it's a bit of a combination of, someone was mentioning the other day, it's both the beauty and the science, and that's how digital and revenue management come together.
So, I guess I could talk about this, two frontiers, right? What we're doing in the corporate office, which I might just kind of park for 1 minute, but it's more, at least from the role that I play in the company, it's what are we doing with our digital capability on property, right? So what is our sales and marketing team doing? Because that is where we find we have the biggest gaps in our ability to drive digital strategies, drive digital initiatives, which ultimately leads down the road of growing book direct. So, You know, on property, the biggest challenge we have is around people, as well as understanding, right? So from the understanding perspective, it starts from the top down at the general manager level, making sure that general managers are educated. Why should they be investing more in digital? And if they were to invest more, who's actually going to do it on property? And that's really getting into a world where we have to think differently on how the team is structured. Right? We've got very much kind of an environment that's built up over many years where we have, you know, silos within the commercial sales and marketing team, very heavy in sales and traditional sales, as well as quite narrow in relative to revenue management. And the type of digital talent that we are recruiting is not really fit for that old model. And we're really working, you know, with the hotel teams to make sure they have well qualified, trained, and capable digital managers.
I think there are two levels of engagement in every organization. One that happens at a corporate level, more strategic levels, where strategy setting takes place. And I think the move towards convergence over there has been much faster and much more efficient and productive. The second aspect is really at the operations and the hotel level. And I think that's a challenge which we are dealing with in two manners. One is a strong education effort around the aspect of digital marketing, around aspects of branding, and so on and so forth. And these programs are not curated for a particular discipline. They cut across, they're cross-discipline. Anyone who's interested to learn about digital marketing can partake in the program. But that also means that it becomes a development activity and a tool, for instance, for directors of revenue. So if you want to be a successful director of revenue and you aspire to grow both intellectually as well as vertically within the company, then these are the skills you need to hone. So initial education pieces were around core revenue management themes, but the new evolved structure is about enhancing and bringing forth further cross-disciplinary exposure, which I think is really critical for success.
Frontline guest engagement is incredibly important.
We have heard that the online distribution cost is constantly increasing. What are you doing in your organization to drive direct bookings?
For direct booking, I mean, that is really in a way, a bit of a holy grail that all of the hotel industry is trying to drive towards. So the first big one, we call it within the company, is really this 360 degrees. So it is revenue management, it is the e-commerce and digital marketing, it is our sales colleague, and actually at the end of the day, it's also the operations team coming together to really focus on getting that direct business. So apart from just acquiring the guests in a direct manner, we are looking at working with the operations team to make sure that by the time a guest really comes to a hotel, in terms of repeat guests, in terms of their satisfaction with it, they are identifying with the hotel and with the brand, and therefore coming back directly. So it is a 360 degrees view. So I guess the whole area of loyalty really comes into play in a very strong way.
We do a lot to drive Book Direct. It's a global priority, and I think it's a number of factors, right? So I would say loyalty is one of the most important components of this. So, you know, long gone are the days where we might have treated that as a separate lever. It's all about driving loyalty, because we know that loyal members will book 4-5 times more directly with our business. So that would be one key piece. The other is around the execution of digital strategies, right? In terms of how can we be better at converting demand that's coming in to our channels, but also how do we, on a property perspective, create our own demand and not leave ourselves at the mercy of third parties that we would be working with. So how can we change that kind of equilibrium? When you break that down, there's lots of different strategies, but I think holistically we think about driving loyalty. We think about improving our ability on property to manage the demand that's coming in more effectively. And then we start to work on a third area of upskilling the teams on property to drive their own demand, so that, again, we're not held mercy to too much intermediary business.
So I think big part of the change has been on the technology side. We realize that if we don't have the platforms of the future, that can cater for loyalty, that can cater for dynamic content. It was impossible for us to kind of improve those channels. So big part of it has been a change of a content management system, a content that needs to relate to a new booking engine, which is much more dynamic and has different offerings and maybe less choice. We think that maybe during this time we have offered too much choice, and the excess of choice doesn't make the people do decisions. So now we're reducing the choice rather to focus people on really what's important. So I think that has been the strategical areas.
So I think the website is no longer a brochure, whereas people used to view perhaps 10 years ago. I think we've come a long way through that. There are three elements to a website that drive a website performance. One is the brand itself, that how powerful is the brand and brand association for someone to be compelled to book on the brand website. And I think there's a lot of work around that that's taking place. The second aspect is around the technology piece, that how do we make our technology more robust and more nimble to changing customer behaviors and buying behaviors, and be able to drive variety of bundling, packaging, ancillary revenue approaches that make it easier for the customer to transact on the website, including payment gateways and so on.
We all like to talk about this journey now from the dreaming about being in the destination and all the sites that you'll go to plan the trip, to actually arriving, and then throughout the stay, and then of course after the stay. So it's all about working on some of these touch points when we do have the opportunity, and this is where we can try to drive people to our own brand site, for example, or just to book direct the traditional way.
It's really around driving performance. And driving performance really means spending money. And you can blow up $5,000 in a day, but not every hotel has $5,000 to blow up in a day. Plus, we want to hold ourselves accountable. So I think being able to test and learn from carrying out different experiments on the website. Last year, I think we ran about 8 to 14 tests on our brand website to be able to understand what works, what does not work, and be able to help educate our hotels in what are the streams they should be investing for the kind of market or kind of business, for example, resort or urban that they operate in. And I think that has been a pretty compelling tale of the success of brand website. I was just talking to someone and they said, you know, we're pretty impressed with your brand website results. They happen to be our asset people also attending the conference, and they were pretty surprised with the gains that we made. And I am quite confident that we will continue to ensure the success of a direct brand channel and own the customer that we want to as the company that we are.
Thank you for the interview.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.